Election worries are running high with just over 3 months until the midterms. According to a new Gallup poll, 2/3 of voters are concerned political leaders will pressure election officials to change results. 57% worry ballots will not be properly handled, counted, or secured. And more than half of voters say they're concerned about people gathering near polling places to intimidate voters or discourage them from voting. Joining me now is our friend, Colorado Secretary of State Jena Griswold. She is also the Democratic nominee for Attorney General in Colorado. Always good to talk with you. So let's get into this, because as you look at these polling numbers, are voters' concerns misguided, or are you tracking these issues as well? And who's to blame for this level of mistrust?
Thanks for having me on, Alex, as always. And I do not think voters and Americans at large are misguided. We are seeing the largest attack in recent history on our democracy. Trump has weaponized the federal government to undermine confidence, but also attack the very foundation of our country, and that's free and fair elections. But voters should know that Democratic secretaries of state and people of good faith all across the country are working hard to safeguard the election. It is illegal in Colorado and across the nation to intimidate voters. It is illegal for federal law enforcement to interfere with the vote. So I think we'll be extremely prepared going into 2026. And that doesn't mean that Trump and MAGA will not behave poorly. They're behaving poorly every single day. They're suing states left and right, trying to grab control over election infrastructure. But the good news is that they're also losing at every single turn.
Can I ask, when you communicate with Republican colleagues in different states, are they on board with what they're being asked to do?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it depends. There is definitely some Republican secretaries of state who have drank the Kool-Aid, very unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But we've also seen chief election officers who are Republicans stand up to this administration. A couple weeks ago, the DOJ sent out a threatening letter to chief election officials across the nation, and you heard strong Republican pushback. So I think it's important to recognize there are Republicans standing up, especially at the local level. In Colorado, our county clerks are mostly Republican. They've stood shoulder and shoulder with me, holding the line against MAGA threats and bad actions from a Democratic governor, granting clemency to Tina Peters here in Colorado. But at the same time, we need to recognize that the attack on democracy is coming from one party, the Republican Party. It's coming from MAGA believers in those who have lost their backbone and refuse to stand up to Trump's power grab. That is also true. So I think it's just a nuanced discussion. And at the end of the day, I myself am willing to work with anybody as long as they believe in free and fair elections.
So, as you know, Monday's the deadline for Democratic states, including Colorado, to respond to Trump's emergency application to the Supreme Court to clear the way for parts of his executive order on mail-in balloting after that lower court ruled it unconstitutional. A dozen Republican states also asked the Supreme Court to allow it ahead of the midterms, calling the proposals common sense to help ensure the security of mail voting within their jurisdictions. So what is the Democratic state argument? And how do you expect Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who will be considering Trump's application, to respond?
To take a step back, we've seen, as I mentioned, the weaponization of the federal government, including the DOJ, and the use of executive orders to try to grab power. In his second term, Trump issued his initial executive order on elections. It has been stopped as unconstitutional. The DOJ is suing states across the nation for sensitive voter data. They're losing every single one of those cases. And this second executive order, which will be before the Supreme Court here, is about the White House trying to create a Trump voter list to decide who gets a mail ballot. Now, Democratic states sued and largely stopped major parts of the executive order at a district court. And the question before the Supreme Court is a really narrow question. It's the question of whether lower courts decided too early, whether this case is ripe. So at the end of the day, I hope the Supreme Court sides with the states in recognizing that this case, it needs to be decided. But regardless of what the decision is, it will not be the end of the road, at least for Democratic states, if we do not prevail at the Supreme Court.
Jena Griswold, it's always illuminating and hopeful, I will say, talking with you, because you are steadfast, if nothing else, that's for sure. Thank you so much.